welcome to This is Halfaween, a creative spectacular hosted by Tracy Vanover Designs and the Holiday Workshop. I am Karen, the everything behind a little kinder here on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Y'all, today's video is going to be a little bit different as we walk step by step through making of my Halloween taggy stack. Every October, I do 13 tags of Halloween, and this is going to be a similar tag to those. I chose the Monster Mash theme for this taggy stack, and at the end, I will share a complete walkthrough of everything. Let's get started. The first thing I like to do is sort my materials. I am a compartmentalized maker, so many of the backgrounds that I'm using during this taggy stack video, I did during play sessions. I know the general idea that I'm going for in our tag stack. It's going to be a tale of transformation. And so I started by gathering up my three main players, the mad scientist, the gravedigger, and the boys and our fortune teller, who will give our scary warning mid-tag stack. The first thing that I do is I start by stamping out some details. I stamp the monsters that are going to be our transformation pieces. And I do those on watercolor paper. I did stamp them twice, one so that I could color it, and the second so that I could leave it black and white. Next, I added a bunch of stamped images to different backgrounds. So I love these Tim Holtz wallpapers. They are from his Halloween collection, and I just added some additional details. This stamp is one of my favorite. It's called Shattered. It is a large background stamp, and it just adds, I don't know, just some kind of lines and grunge and some really coolness. I also used the words and the flowers from the Exquisite stamp set. So here I'm stamping those flowers onto one of the backgrounds. This one does have a shiny finish, so you will see here in a minute where I dab this off on the paper to make sure it's good and dry. But one of the things that I really like to do is add stamped images to already made ephemera. It adds some uniqueness, and it gives the ability to personalize those items that everybody has access to. The stamps for the monsters, the Monster Reunion stamp set from Tim Holtz and Stampers Anonymous. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. So one of the things that I like to do when I am creating is try to get everything done in steps. I mentioned a minute ago that I am a departmentalized maker, meaning that I like to just sit and play without having a project in mind. That gives me a lot of leeway when it comes into the actual making of projects. It also gives me some room then to come in and personalize what I'm doing. So I had added some of the words and the flowers from the Exquisite stamp set onto several different pieces. Then I started the process of watercoloring, and I am using the Tim Holtz watercolor crayons and a water brush. And I really like the way that these turned out. I did stamp these images in archival ink, which is a great ink for watercoloring because it will not blend. That's kind of my go-to black ink is the Black Soot Archival. I don't know, it's just a really nice dark black. Using the Misty platform that you saw me use a minute ago allows me to come back and stamp over any spots in my image that I feel are not clear enough. So we're going to color all three of these guys with the watercolor crayons. I am using the water brush to actually pick up the crayon off of the tip. This is one of my favorite methods of watercoloring. It allows me to come in and mix colors and pick colors that I want to use. I do have all 6 of the sets, and I have them in rainbow order. This just allows me to pull out, say, the greens if I'm wanting to paint a monster green, or the reds or the purples. It's just a nice way for me to see my whole palette. I do apologize for cutting off this image a little bit. We are camper crafting right now, and so the setup is a little different, and I failed to pay attention to the fact that she was a little bit off camera. But I am using wilted, I think it's wilted violet. It's kind of that gray bluey purple that's one of the lightest in the Tim Holtz Distress line. And then I'm mixing it with a little bit of Lost Shadow, kind of to give that bone a little bit of texture, since this little monster doesn't have flesh on her. So now we've changed over to the red palettes, and we are going to paint her dress in lumberjack plaid and festive berries. I really like those two colors together. The festive berries leans a little bit more pinky purple, and that lumberjack plaid, oh, it is the perfect red, just deep, bold, and so it's beautiful here for the shadowy areas. For her hair, I did use black soot, and I watered it down a little bit. You can't see because it's off camera, but a lot of times I use my left hand to clean my brush on or to get water started on. It just gives me that ability to control the amount of water that is in what I'm working on. So we're going to come back in. We're going to give this vampire-y guy a yellow shaded jacket coat. I thought that would play well, kind of an orangey yellow, rusty kind of colored jacket playing off of his purpley skin. And then we are going to finish up by adding some blues to the shirt of the Frankenstein-y monster. These characters are really, really fun. This set also included a tombstone as well as kind of a smashed pumpkin and some really funny sayings. But we're just using these three images. They're really going to play a role in our transformation that we'll see here in a minute as we start to put our tags together. And here we go to add in the blues to this shirt. I used tumbled glass. I felt like this was a really pretty light blue, but it played well with the greens of his body. The shorts, I used a couple of the browns. I do not have scorched timber with me. I don't know how that managed not to make it into this set, but it is probably at home on my desk, meaning to be packed. But his shorts, we used a little bit of the walnut stain mixed with some vintage photo to give his shorts kind of that khaki color. Once my images are dry, I did fussy cut them out so that I have them ready to use. This is a thicker watercolor paper, so this was slightly more difficult to get cut out than I had originally expected. So you'll notice as I'm going through, I am cutting kind of chunks off of this paper as I work my way around. And we will get all three of these little guys cut out. Okay, one last prep item on my list was to add some texture paste to some of these pieces. And I am using the black opaque texture paste and a stencil from Tim Holtz. This is the one that looks like X's. They kind of remind me a little bit of stitches. So I am going through and adding these onto different pieces that are going to be used in our project. I love how this adds some dimension to the projects. Even the black on black will give kind of a shadowy effect that you don't get otherwise. And I love that these stitches to me look so much like that monster theme. Now, I did pick up the Mad Scientist paper doll here, and I decided that I wanted her to have these really deep, beautiful purple roses. So I have clear gessoed these pieces. I did that, like I said, when I departmentally make, I go through, I tend to do things like clear gesso so that they are ready to go when I am ready to work. So, one of the things that really struck me as I was looking at this mad scientist and thinking about her was that she needed some way to almost look like a mad scientist, almost like things were exploding in the back behind her. And so I grabbed this maple leaf stamp. It is a Tim Holtz uh, Stampers Anonymous stamp. And I'm using those watercolor crayons as a direct color method onto the stamp. So you wet your stamp as well as your paper. And then you use the watercolor pencil directly onto the stamp. And it gives a beautiful watercolor look. One of the things that I do like, because we have wet the paper, is it does give you the ability to twist the paper and turn the paper to get it to run. We are going to use this exact same technique using Villainous Potion onto these tags. This is, I'm trying to think which stamp set this is from. It's either the Professor, maybe, but this is a nice way for you to add some watercolor looked dimensions. Now that these are dry, I am going to fussy cut out these leaves. This is the same watercolor paper that I use for just about anything. It's just a Canson that you can get at any box store. So here we're going to audition how these leaves are going to go. Like I said, I kind of wanted it to look like something was exploding behind her. And I really feel like that this creates that look. It also gives her a little bit of the look of having a crown, which I am not the least bit opposed to. I think it is fantastic. The tag that I am working off is one of those that I had made in one of my play sessions where I used the opaque black texture paste, the bat stencil, and then I had used sprays on this tag. That is a Ranger Tim Holtz Distress tag. It is the larger size of the two. And so that one was a pre-made and all I had to do was grab it. So we are adding these different elements to our Mad Scientist tag, some different things, the unlucky number 13, the bats to show transformation, this giant piece that is that circle that almost looks like a bullseye, and then the explosion of the leaves behind it. So one of the things I didn't think about before I stuck down the large circle was how am I going to cover the back of this tag, because we cannot have a naked tag back. So you'll see here in a minute that I just kind of set that aside while I'm working. That is kind of my go-to when I'm not 100% sure what to do, because I'm like, I messed up. Should have thought about sticking this down after I had backed the tags. I do use Berry Art Glue, and it is a very, very strong adhesive. The papers don't come off very easily, so that's why I did not decide to go in and remove that circle and try to fix it. So now we're going to start working on some different pieces. We're going to add some grunge with the watercolor crayons. We're going to take these roses and we're going to back them on this tag. This is actually going to be our very first tag in the tag stack. This tag has the rose on the front and the back. That's one of the nice things about some of the ephemera pieces is that there will be mirrored images so that they can stick over and hang over the edges, and you can have something on the front and back. Not that you necessarily have to. You could always trim them off or just have them overhang. And then I have grabbed my edge distressor and just kind of roughing up those edges. I love the look of an edge distressor on pieces. I really feel like that it gives it some wear and some grunge without it being brown. So now we kind of have some of our pieces stacked together. Again, I like to go through and kind of audition and think about where pieces should go in our story. And that's kind of what's happening here. I am edging up some things, and then I do not work linearly. I work with what inspires me. And so that's kind of what you're seeing here is moving from the left to the right across the bottom of this page. You're seeing the order of the tags and kind of the evolution that they go through. Here I decided that I wanted to kind of give some forewarning to what was going to happen in the end, that these different characters were going to turn into monsters. So I have pulled the black and white images that I will need to fussy cut to use. For this tag, we're just kind of grunging it up. The watercolor paper is a little bit of an ivory color, but not so ivory that you think that you would need it or that you would like it to stay that way. I felt like it needed some color. And then we're going to go through and fussy cut out all of our monsters and get them into the stack of where they will go in this tag stack. I mentioned a second ago that I really do kind of start to collect things and stack them together as I'm working, making decisions on what is going to go where. This tag that we are backing, I love how this one turned out. This is another one of those that I made in just a play session where I worked with sprays. So that is Twisted Citron and either peacock feathers or Mermaid Lagoon. So here's our little fortune teller. She's trying to come in and warn us that this gravedigger fella is all kinds of bad news, that we should know that he's a collector and we should stay away from him. But as our story goes, we will not heed her warning. And so this tag kind of becomes a pivot in our tag stack from the introduction of characters to a warning of who we are getting ready to meet, that we should beware, that they are toxic, that they are poison, and we should truly, truly stay away from them. So much like I do all of my tags, it is truly a pick and pull and put together and decide what to do. I have added the number 31 to this to represent Halloween, that on Halloween night is when all of these spooky ooky things can happen and these transformations take place. So it's kind of that big foreboding warning that you would get if you were reading a novel, that kind of foreshadowing of what's to come. Now I am going to pull out the sticker book. I love these little word snips. I use them all of the time. They are probably one of my favorite things in telling a story. When you read through them, you really do get to places where you're piecing together a story, and they come together beautifully because they have been curated so well. So now we're going to work a little bit on our tag that is our two little boys that turn into this monster. And so we're labeling this tag wickedly or dreadfully wicked because this horrible thing is about to happen to these two sweet little boys. So I chose one of the ephemera pieces for this tag that is a notebook. It says chemical equations or chemical something. Anyway, it looks like a school book that you would use in chemistry. And so I felt like that was a great thing to go with this. And then we're going to add this little skeleton rub-on, again, kind of alluding to this transformation that is going to happen. All of these different gears and widgets and things that all you would think would be in a mad scientist laboratory or a monster's laboratory, kind of think old school black and white Frankenstein movie. So here I've gone back to the mad scientist. I had picked out all of my pieces, but I had not glued her tag together. Here I've tucked in her little monster piece, again, kind of giving that foreboding feeling, maybe a little hint to what is to come for our mad scientist in the future, her alter ego. And we're going to get all of this glued down to our tag base. Again, I love the berry art glue for gluing different textures together. So now we've flipped over and we're looking at what's going to come between these two tags. So between our introduction of the mad scientist and our introduction of the dreadfully wicked tag, what pieces are we going to find in between? And these are some of the tags from the ephemera packs. They are absolutely fantastic. When you get in and you look at them, they have all kinds of different words. Some of them say things like unclaimed or lost. So I think it's really kind of fantastic when you can use pieces in your tag stacks that are already kind of done for you. So we're going to kind of jump to the end here. And we are going to create this crate and get our monsters captured. So in our story, the gravedigger is actually our big bad guy. He's a misunderstood gentleman. And so he has captured these people that have gone through this transformation, and he has put them in this cage. And then we're going to have the spooky eyes on the background of this, on the back side of this tag, so that just kind of the glow of the dark of looking into a cage. I did add some wallpaper behind this because the back of the spooky eye paper is not very clean, and that would show through. And I could have gone through and done some sort of a background wash or something, but it was just easier to back it. So now we have our tags complete, and we are going through and we are actually telling the story. I know what is going where and how I want it to flow at this point. There are some tags that need to be completed, and for me, it's just easier to complete them as I add the story in. So using those clips again, we're just going to go through and find the ones that work the best for the tag and the story that we're trying to tell. I do like to snip these apart to give kind of some motion to what's happening on the tag so that they're not just static. It's not just necessarily a make it fit type situation, although in some places it really is that the phrase or the line was too large and I need to make it fit. But most of the time it is more about giving some motion to the words as they move across a page, almost like a poem. And we're going to keep doing this for each of the stories. Here we're going to audition some things to figure out how to cover this circle. Again, if I had been really thinking at the time, I wouldn't have stuck down the circle until I had gotten the back complete. But to be real honest, I like how it turned out. I feel like that this was a nice workaround for what we were doing and how to make this work. I also love how we are able to add in some more elements, some more of the clock faces and widgets and things that would show transformation. I do like the addition of this pink reddish rose throughout this tag stack. It really gives me, in my opinion, an element that gets carried through. Almost thinking about how you would have flowers in a jar. You take them from small plants and they grow, and then you take clippings and you put them in the house and they stay until they are ready to be thrown out. And so it kind of is a nice element that drags through our tag stack, kind of sharing that same transformation. So here I had stuck down my words before I added my little vampire guy and did not realize how tall he was. In my head, he was shorter, and so we had to do some arrangement. Here is our gravedigger. We finally have gotten to the point in our tag stack where we are going to introduce him. We are showing, again, with each of these pieces, kind of that foreshadowing of what's to come. really find this fantastic. I think it's a great way to tell a story in the tags without having to write down, once upon a time, this happened and that happened and this happened and that happened. Here at the end, I will go through and we'll go tag by tag and I will read to you each of the sayings of the tags so that you can truly see how the story melds together. This is one of those evidence tags. It had been backed with some paper. And here is a close-up of our whole stack. Really, really love how this turns out. I will be punching holes in these and actually turning it into a tag stack. Thank you for joining me today for this Halfaween project. As you look through the different close-up images, I hope that you are inspired to create your own taggy stacks. I also hope that you will join me in October when we do the 13 tags of Halloween. That will be coming on my Instagram channel, Add a Little Kinder on Instagram. You can like and follow the video here, and I will have messages out as we get closer and closer to Halloween. Make sure that you check out everyone else who has created with us in this fantastic hop. I thank you for being here. Make sure that you like and subscribe here on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Until we are together next time, my friends, I hope that you are out making memories. Thank you. Bye-bye.